we're super excited to bring you some interesting concepts today from industry titans. So it's not necessarily just KW, but we have some tips from some, I think, some of the smartest people in the industry, whether it's John Maxwell, Jim Rohn, Gary Keller, and a couple of unknowns that you may or may not have heard of before who I think are super smart. So we're excited about today. Typically, we talk a lot about things that we need to do in real estate, tactical things, strategic things, and very often we don't step back long enough to really think about, well, what do we need to be doing from a big vision picture in order to be one of those industry titans that we can learn from, because most of them have become super wealthy from really acknowledging a few simple things. And with this last 6 months, if there's anything that I've learned, keep it simple.
Sure.
Narrow our focus.
Right.
So today we're going to talk about 10 different things, 10 different concepts. You can certainly type any questions you have in the chat box. We're going to leave time at the end to come back to that. So the first one is going to be very, very interesting, very different, very provocative. Sometimes Gary Keller says some things to me that I absolutely never understand the first time he says them. Like the whole, you got to go from basic to complex back to simple. That one took me a while.
Right.
But today, let's go ahead and start with the first one, which is the man that loves to walk will always walk farther than the man who loves the destination. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is you have to love the game. You've got to be in the game all the time. And just breathe when I say this. Those that love money just to fund their lifestyle, in my opinion, are always going to play small. What I mean by that, there are people that love the game so much. Gary Keller loves the game. I was on the phone with him for 90 minutes last Friday, and we were talking about our love of the game. Like we love real estate. We love this game. And what people have to understand is that for people who love the game, they will sacrifice everything to win. Do you think Gary's kind of that guy?
For sure.
Absolutely. And so results, just remember the results that we always talk about, those are just indicators.
Right.
But the point is, if you're really going to be an industry titan, you've got to be in the game all the time. You can't get in and out, and it can't just be for the money that it will give just you to fund your lifestyle. What about all the other people in your life?
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So if you think about it, the man that loves to walk will always walk further than the man that loves the destination, meaning the man that's just trying to get to money.
Right. Well, and what a better philosophy as it pertains to actually enjoying the journey and enjoying the day-to-day. You're not just waiting for some outcome to decide to be happy, but you're loving what you're doing along the way. So regardless of the outcome, you're at least enjoying the process. The
process, and also just remember, happiness happens along the way to fulfillment. Like it's a process. It's a journey. There's no end game. And we'll talk more about that, I think, in number 7 or 8 when we talk about growth versus goals. Perfect. That's the same thing.
Yeah.
So think of this as a journey. We're trying to help you learn how to use some concepts that will help you on your wealth journey. And real estate is a funding mechanism to get there.
That's right.
So number 2, let's look at number 2. Now, this is interesting because you're thinking, what is she trying to tell me? People don't know what they don't know.
Indeed, they don't.
they don't. And what's interesting is you can, once you understand you don't know what you don't know, you can win with that. And the way you win with that is you've got to develop skills outside of your own bias. Think about that. We all have biases. And so you've got to be learning based, and you've got to be willing to hone skills that are outside of your bias, because we all have a bias in real estate, a bias like if I do this, it will get this result. And sometimes those biases keep us from the learning that we need to have about the things that we don't know that we don't know.
Right.
So I was told you today is going to be a little cerebral.
Yeah.
But I really want you to think. So the key to this is education.
Yeah.
And being in our business, being super consumer focused. Remembering what is it that the consumer wants, focusing on that. Too many agents are turn and burn, right? They're turning and burning through transactions.
Right. Looking for today's deal and forgetting the rest.
Yeah. They're not being, they're not connecting with people.
Right.
And so what people don't know what they don't know. What they don't realize is the last 3 years isn't the normal real estate market. You showed up the last few years, you fogged a mirror, somebody wanted to buy something, you wrote the contract, nothing. We never had to prepare for an open house because the house wasn't on the market long enough, right? So people don't know what they don't know about what this market looks like. And so they have a bias towards the old market that keeps them from being open to the changes they need to make for this market.
So I can see how that absolutely applies to our consumers and the way that we educate our consumers. And then if you look at the next echelon, it's our agents and what are they thinking about what's happening in the market and how are they approaching things? And then us as leaders. So this applies to every level of
it does.
And
once you understand that we kind of have a bias given the market that we just went through, and we have to understand there's things that we don't know, that we honestly don't know that we don't know. So getting around other leaders who have gone through a shift will be super helpful.
Right.
And understanding that right now connecting with people is the only game. Not the name of the game. It is the only game, and connecting with more of them. So anytime there's a shift in the market, we have to realize that we already have a natural bias and we have to get past that. And so, there's other people around us that do know what we don't know. So just being super learning based and super willing to open our mind to the concept that we may have a bias towards a market that doesn't exist anymore.
Right. Yeah. It may be time to retool.
It may be time to retool. So this next one really goes right in line with that. And that is who you hang around with matters. Are you hanging around with people that are gloom and doom? This market's terrible. The interest rates are terrible. What are we going to do? The banks are collapsing. Can we control the banks?
No.
Can we control the Fed?
Nope.
Can we control interest rates?
No.
No. We can only control what we can do and what we know. So who you hang around matters a lot during shifts like this. You want to hang around people that have been through it before, like I mentioned before. John Maxwell says, show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
That's right.
And it's true.
Yeah.
It's so true. Jim Rohn said it differently, but it's the same concept. You are the average of the 5 people that you hang around with the most. So if during this shift, you're hanging around people who don't want to go where you want to go, or people who don't know what they don't know,
right?
John would say lovingly, you might want to get some new friends.
Right. We tend to adopt the beliefs and start buying into some of those behaviors that we see and experience in the people around us. And so if we're not careful and we're buying into people's limiting beliefs or, limited perspective of what's happening in the market, we could adopt those beliefs too if we're not careful.
You can. And just remember this too, growth can occur much, much, much faster with talented people who are committed to the vision of where you're going, not the person. So sometimes people buy into a person. Don't do that. Buy into the vision of the person. So for instance, I've bought into the vision of Gary Keller, which is I'm willing to allow Keller Williams to get as big as it needs to get to make sure all of us get what we want.
Right.
I bought into that vision.
Yeah.
And so who you're hanging around with is the most important thing. Gary, like I mentioned, had a great call with him last Friday, and he just said, there's nothing more important than the people that you're connecting with and you're hanging around with the most who have been where this market has been before. So
let's make it super tactical, Kristan. If I'm listening right now saying, you know what, I could use some new friends, some new colleagues, some new role models in my life, specifically as it pertains to my business. Where do I start looking? Where do I start hanging around? How do I start having these accidental interactions to start building my network?
Well, one thing is about what you listen to. I mean, you might want to sign up for Ed Milet's podcast.
Great start.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't he phenomenal?
Yeah. Phenomenal keynote.
Just really, really incredible. And he's a big thinker.
Absolutely.
And if you listen to his podcast, you'll find that he understands that he doesn't know everything. And that's why he has such an incredible group on his podcast that's really to expand our thinking, to help us think bigger and differently and consider other mindsets. And so that's a great one. Gary Keller's podcast, Think Like a CEO. He released 6 new series in January that are super good.
So good.
That really go through some of the key talks that he had at family reunion. So if you miss family reunion, go listen to his podcast. So that would be a start.
Yeah.
What are you listening to?
It's a great start.
What are you reading?
Yeah.
And who are you hanging around?
Got it.
Right.
Fairly simple.
It honestly is fairly simple. I was chatting with a guy today from Louisiana who's not having the market that we're having. It's interesting. It doesn't go up very fast. It can come down very fast.
Right.
He does not understand why we're experiencing what we're experiencing. But interestingly enough, he is so learning based. He puts himself in front of people that have already gone down the road that he wants to go. Meaning this, don't go chase somebody who has a shiny new idea that has no proven track record.
Mm-hmm.
Find people that you want to follow who have a proven track record over time. Like Ed Milet, most people think, oh, he just was an overnight sensation. You hear his story, got no water, showering at the pool shower.
Anything but, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He had some struggles.
John Maxwell said this, and it's so important. People come up to John all the time and say, I want to be you, John. And he says, do you want to do what I had to do the last 25 years to get here?
Right.
There are no overnight sensations. What there is, as Gary would say, is it's called work. And we're going to probably have to work harder in a different way this year than we've worked before.
Right.
And that is, how many people can we connect with?
And that's ultimately the theme of this whole call, right? We're giving you the tools that are going to enable you to be able to step up your game, to be able to inspire and motivate yourself and your energy in you and all the people around you so that you can get that same result and take your unfair share of the market.
Yeah. And the truth is that all this stuff, you'll find that you are attracted to certain people. And when you start living out who you say you are, other people will become attracted to you too.
They do. Yeah.
It's really a cool thing. And Gary talked about it at family reunion quite a bit about, don't say, I'm going to become this person. Say, well, I think two examples really point home to this. Say, I am this leader. For instance, instead of saying I'm trying to quit smoking, you say what?
I'm not a smoker.
And instead of saying I'm going to start reading books,
I'm a reader.
Exactly. So it's the same thing Gary would say with you. Do you know who you are? Start with that.
Yeah.
So again, who you hang around with matters. So if you want to become John Maxwell or Gary Keller or their values, or then you have to work harder on yourself than anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And say, I am this leader. So what else do we have? Number 4, you can be anywhere you want to be in 5 years. We underestimate where we can be in 5 years. We overestimate where we can be in a year.
Right.
And he said that, and he was really trying to explain the concept of scaling a business. And he had a map on the wall, a graph. One of them was a straight line, and it was agent A. And then one of them was agent B, and it looked like a straight line until about 3 years in. And then it started to go up. And then about the 5th year, it went totally geometric.
Right.
And he asked the question in the class, and he said, do you understand the difference between the two agents? And he said, the difference is, have you built a foundation to scale?
Mm.
And whether you're scaling up or scaling down, having the foundation is absolutely critical.
Right.
You've got to have the right foundation. So when you think about that, we're a company of systems and models. Whether you're a solo agent like me, I was a solo agent for 15 years. I still needed a system.
Right.
And then you and I have been building KCN for a long time, and we break it and fix it and break it and fix it. But we've learned some consistent patterns to scaling a business. So we've kind of been through every iteration all the way to automation.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. I like to think about the idea that systems allow us to scale with integrity. And sometimes we try to outgrow our own foundation and things get really messy really fast. And then we're having to take a step backwards and rebuild. And so the idea with what you're talking about with that geometric growth is lay the foundation as you go and make sure that you have the integrity to scale as you do it. And we'd rather do it slowly and gradually than really fast and then collapse.
Right. And I just want to say, when we're talking about scaling, we're talking also as a solo agent, how to scale.
Sure.
Meaning, how do you have systems and models for the business that you have as a solo agent? Same with market centers, same with PC programs, right?
Exactly.
You just created a new PC program.
Exactly.
Right? And it's all about laying the foundation.
That's right. Otherwise, without these systems and without this foundation, no matter how talented you are and no matter how strong your work ethic, you're going to hit that natural ceiling of achievement. And there's going to come a point where you run out of time. And so the systems allow to scale beyond that.
They do. And what I love about it is when Gary talks about that, and I look back over the last 5 years, look at where we were in 2017, 2018 compared to now. And it's not anything I could conceive of then.
Right.
But there are natural laws that happen. And when Gary says, when you put the puzzle together, the man appears, or he says it a little differently. What he's trying to say is you've got to put the foundation in if you want to get where you want to go in 5 years.
Absolutely.
Sometimes even if you don't know what 5 years looks like, other than just growth.
Right.
Because it may not, a lot of people have end destinations. We talk about goals just to measure, are we getting there? Are we getting there? Are we getting there? But ultimately our vision is for growth.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, totally.
Which kind of goes into the next one. And this one's kind of a little longer version of it. But when we talk about goals versus growth, one, and I know you love Simon Sinek.
I do.
Yeah. One is a finite game and one's an infinite game.
That's right. Yeah.
So when you think about growth, even if you use the words GROWTH, you might want to write these down. For the first one, GR in growth. Give your people and yourself a growth environment. A growth environment is an infinite environment. It's one where, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And then just work the math backwards, right? We did a lot of math on Monday.
Absolutely.
Right? So be in a growth environment where you consider the possibilities and the opportunities of the market we're in right now that are very different than a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number two, for O, think about what are the opportunities for your people and you to grow given the market that we're in right now. Sometimes those look very different, and they do look different than they did a year ago. Right now, most people I know see this market as a problem instead of an opportunity.
Right. Simple reframe totally changes your perspective, the way you feel about the situation, and ultimately the action you take.
Yes. Yes. And then W, with your people, you're going to have to walk them through challenging times. So when you think about growth, there's always going to be challenges. So as a leader, whether you're leading yourself or a small team or a big team, you've got to walk your people through challenging times. That means you've got to show up, be visible, have a proven plan, and be there. Just being available. I've probably been in the market center more this year than I've ever been in the market center. So I think it's important that you walk your people through challenging times and show them, not just tell them. What did Ed Milet say? Facts tell, stories sell.
Yep.
So you've got to show them. And then the T in growth is for teach them to learn from every experience, meaning every meeting you're in, every group that you're around, always be a sponge asking questions. We met with a very, very prominent agent here in Phoenix yesterday who's not with KW. And here's what was interesting. You know what he said? You guys are asking me so many great questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he, of course, we all love telling about ourselves.
Sure.
But we were just asking him great questions. So I think teaching them how to ask great questions and how to learn from every experience is all a part of growth.
Well, that goes right back to getting through the challenges, right? Getting through the current situation by its very nature is going to require you to grow, which goes back to what Gary says all the time, which is fail often, fail fast, and fail forward, right? Failure is the key to growth. And so even if we have a challenging market or a challenging situation with our business or our staff, those challenges are what create the growth and is ultimately the journey that we're creating.
So, and I'm going to say H real quickly, help your people by adding value to them and helping them add value to others.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to growth being an infinite game, I'll say this final piece about that. Goals are important to understand where you are and where you've been, but growth is infinite.
Right.
And Gary said this also, the bigger your database is right now, the more money you're going to make. So growing your database on a daily basis is kind of a good idea.
I feel like I've been hearing that for several years now.
Yeah. Well, right now it's the only game. You have to make sure that nobody can get between you and the people in your database.
That's right.
That's connection.
Right.
So you have a big database, connect with them. We already know if you have 200 people in your database that you're connecting with, you're going to make 100,000 a year, right? So,
yeah.
So just scale that math.
According to actual stats.
Right. exactly.
And it goes back, if I may, the database itself is a system that allows you to scale your lead generation with integrity, right? Rather than trying to mentally remember who to follow up with and when, the database is the system that allows, and there's infinite growth to how big we scale that database and how systematically we follow up with thousands of contacts.
And that's a choice.
It
doesn't happen to us. It's just a choice.
Right.
I'm going to get up today and I'm going to add 5 people to my database every day, and I'm going to connect with them on a level that is more than sending a recipe card.
Exactly.
So it just hugely important. And as the thing about creating a business that will attract people to you, remember this, that agents will pay more for an outcome than they will an opportunity.
This is a great leadership lesson.
Yeah. They want, so if you have a system that can produce an outcome, you're going to attract a whole lot of people. So that's all talking about scale. You've got to be able to scale your business such that you have proven concepts that will deliver an outcome. You just follow this system, it delivers an outcome.
Here would be an example of that. On our team, we really focus on SOI referrals and repeat business. And so we can track that. I think it's 73 or 4%.
It was 76.
76, excuse me, percent of our business comes from the database,
Right.
repeat referral business. And so when we're in conversation with a big recruit, we can talk to them about the system that we've established that creates this result for us. And should they choose to join us in this vision, they can have the similar result as well.
Exactly. And that's very different than just saying, oh, I've got this opportunity and you have nothing to back it up.
Right.
That's the shiny object we don't want you chasing.
Right.
Yeah. So with that, let's pause a second and just bear with me a minute, a shameless plug for a class that we're going to be teaching.
That's right.
It's 8 weeks long. And if you've never purposely built your business one step at a time, that's kind of what we're going to teach them.
That's the beauty of the 8-week series, is incremental changes and decisions and work over a period of time that's been very sequentially ordered.
Right. And by doing it, we give you a week in between so that you can work on that part that we taught you that week.
That's right.
And so you also have access to those videos for 8 weeks after the course ends. So you can bring your team members in. Hey, it was great this week. Let's implement this. So I think it's a way that if you truly want to build a great business, whether you're a solo agent, small team, market center, PC program, it doesn't matter. What we're going to teach you works in all businesses.
Business fundamental. Yes, totally.
Regardless of whether it's real estate or not.
Well, what a great opportunity, like you said, to bring your team and maybe expose them to some things they didn't know they don't know.
Right. That's so true. So true. And it's a funny thing when we can say something to our team all day long and they're like, they don't, no. But then someone else like Gary can say it. It's like all of a sudden it's magic.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, right? Yeah. You've been telling your agents the same thing over and over. Then some outside guest comes in and all of a sudden it's the greatest idea they've ever heard.
Exactly. We've all been there. So, for me, I think I see Jim Atkinson on here. So Jim, you've taken our class before, right? He's on mute, I think. Do we have to unmute him, Tegan? There we go.
Yeah, I've taken your class.
So did this now a year or so ago, September, you and your wife and I think one assistant, that's what your team looked like, right?
Correct. Yep.
What does it look like today?
We have about 8 salespeople, 4 admin, and a lot of systems in place that we definitely did not have 15 months ago. So,
and I'm asking a question I think I already know the answer to, but how does scale help you do that?
And I'm listening to this here, and probably one of the biggest things is when you talked about people don't know what they don't know. I started out on this and just scale your business was a blueprint on how to build your business. And I'm excited. I'm going to take it again just because there's so much information in there. And we've got the first part of it down pat. We've got a lot of the systems in place now. We've developing our hub. We've got a lot of our playbooks done now, but there's a lot more to do. And it's just all about building that foundation. And that's what Scale Your Business was teaching me.
We're going to have some new MOFers for you too, Jim, this time around.
Oh,
yeah.
Perfect. I'm ready.
Yeah. So super cool. We test everything first before we test it on you guys. So, well, thanks, Jim, for being willing to jump in. One more question. Do you think, has it had an impact on your return on investment? Meaning, have you guys been able to have a higher net profit through this process?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just being able to dial in and understand the business that much better and go at it with a plan rather than haphazardly. It's like I said, it's a blueprint on how to grow not just real estate business, but any business. It goes across many different dimensions. And from that, I think it's just phenomenal.
Well, and I think I heard you say it, not today, but I've also heard another person say it that was in the class. And what they said was, with this market that we have right now, I feel super comfortable because I already have a plan in place that I know that works. So I'm not fearful of the market we're going into. And that's kind of cool too.
Yep. No, I'm excited going forward.
Well, good. I'm glad you're going to be in the class again. It'll be fun.
Yep. Looking forward
It'll be fun. With Joe around with me, I mean, I'm not the fun factor, but it will be fun. I promise you that. So we do have a code for you if you want a discount on the class, and you can scan that code and put or scan the QR code and put in the code and get the discount while we're on the call today. So thank you so much, Jim, for being willing to jump in. I saw you and I appreciate you.
All right. No problem.
So back to the top 10.
Here we go. Number 6.
And I it's so funny because I wanted to bring concepts in a different way, meaning we're probably not saying anything new today, but we're certainly saying them in a different way.
Right.
So I wanted to make your reticular activating system in your brain think differently. And the next one is passengership versus partnership. Joe, what do you think I mean by that?
It's a great question. I'm definitely chewing on it. Passengership kind of just sounds like somebody that's along for the ride. They're technically on the bus, but maybe just riding along. Whereas a partnership is a true, I don't know whether to use word to use, but partnership. It's a true two people really bringing their minds together. So it sounds like a deeper connection with a more intentional outcome.
Yeah. So if you think about this, great leaders have the ability to show you what could be, not just what is. And so when you think about partnering with people,
write that one down.
When you think about partnering with people, you do need a leader that has a vision, but you need, Ed Milet said it, I don't need you to believe what I believe. I just need you to believe that I believe it.
That's right. That's worth writing down.
Yeah. So great leaders have the ability to show you what could be, not just what is. And that's kind of what we went through on Monday when I showed everything on the map. And so we have to be people and leaders who value other people so much that we are willing to show them what the possibilities could be, and that we are working harder on ourselves than anyone else so that we can bring that leadership value to the business, the corporation, the partnership. Everyone says it, everything rises and falls on leadership. And so if you've got passengers that are just coming along for the ride, you might want to get some new partners, because passengership in this business right now, the business that we're in, and I was looking at a lot of numbers this week, that's not going to work. The agent I met with yesterday, he had 87 people on his team late last year. Today he has 50.
Big cut.
Because he said he got rid of the people that were just passengers along for the ride.
Right.
He really wanted people that were bought in and partners in the vision of where they were going. So I think for me, when I think about a big vision, I want to make sure that who we are is encapsulated in that. And that's part of what we teach in Scale, so that you can boil down what is your vision in a few words that everybody gets.
That's right.
So
yeah, your business values and your the culture you're creating based on those traditions, those that language, all of those things.
All those things, and the consistency and steadiness to be willing to, as Gary said, charge the storm with that, such that by charging it, you're going to get through the storm faster.
So what are maybe some telltale signs? If I have a staff, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and I'm sitting here right now thinking about each one of them, what are some telltale signs of either partnership or passengership that I should be looking for or considering?
Good question, because I think when you see, I think all of us really know what passengership feels like. There they're not bucking you, but they're certainly not helping.
They kind of just show up and do what they need to do, but no more.
Yeah. And sometimes they even give you pieces of the job back.
Mm.
In a market like this, I don't need people giving me pieces of the job back. What I need is people really digging in, willing to go the extra mile. They see that I'm going the extra mile. They're going to go the extra mile, and coming up with, being able to dialogue around a very narrow focus of what matters. Meaning I want their ideas, but I want them very specifically around the narrow focus that we know is going to get us through this market, because it's gotten us through this market every single time.
Right. Based on your experience, how to narrow that focus. And so you want people, and we've talked about this a lot at our leadership team level, and even with our market centers, it's taken us some time to get everybody to truly understand the vision and be able to cut away all of the distractions to focus on the narrow.
Right.
And sometimes people don't know what they don't know. So they're still trying to do these creative, shiny objects. Whereas what I hear you saying is back to the fundamentals and back to that really narrow focus. And you're sort of filtering it through that lens, all your decisions.
We're filtering all the decisions through that lens. And so much so that we actually then say, okay, well, here's our GPS, and then here's the opportunity right now in this market. And then we're matching that up to our calendars.
Right.
Like literally pulling our calendars up.
Very intentional.
Very intentional. And so I think when you're in a partnership, everyone is very intentional.
Yeah.
When you've got passengers that are just along for the ride, it feels like you're pulling a train, honestly. So go find people who really want to partner with you versus people who just want to go along for the ride.
I like that. Number
7, everything in war is simple. It's just that simple things are difficult, right? So what do I mean by that? When we're at war, and obviously we're not physically at war, but we are at war in the real estate market for the clients and
sure.
for buyers and sellers, right? And making sure that we can narrow down the focus and explain to them what's really going on and helping them make good decisions. So as a leader, when you're at war, so to speak, and things, we've narrowed it, it's simple. It's just difficult to execute on a daily basis. And I say this lovingly, but an analogy I would use is you as the leader need to be willing to smell like a sheep.
Okay, you're going to have to unpack that one for me.
So you need to be able to smell like the sheep that you are leading, meaning you can't be over here esoterically saying what people should be doing and expect them to go do it. You've got to be willing to do what they're doing.
That makes sense.
So if you're leading sheep, you got to smell like a sheep. Right. You have to learn to work together. Now you're a military guy, right? Military 10 years.
That's right.
Is one of the things that they taught you is that it's working together, you can get there faster, which is what Gary says too.
Working together is not an option. From boot camp, they teach you that the only way you will progress and succeed is if you work together. And should you choose not to, it's going to be more painful, and you're going to stay in that. You're not going to make progress. Right.
And there's really strategic ways to work together such that so that you do get where you want to go. So a lot of times right now with hands on deck, I might be closer or, physically closer, spending more time with the people that I work with every day than maybe some of my family members. So I don't want to be around people who don't want to smell like a sheep, like I'm smelling like a sheep.
Right.
I want us all to be putting in the same amount of effort so that we can all get there. And honestly, this market requires stamina to do that. So you've got to be taking care of you first, being the leader that you need to be so that you've got the mental stamina to keep going when everybody else wants to quit.
That's right.
Right. So to say it another way, this might help, is the king has to be the first one to lift the heaviest burden and the last one to put it down.
That is another good one.
Yeah. So you have to be able to make the heaviest lift and you have to be the last one to set your work down. And I think leading by example, I don't expect everybody to do that. I just want them to see what I'm doing to have my skin in the game so that they know as a leader, I'm with them.
Yeah. I love that. Totally.
So I think all of us have to set high standards and be willing to hold people accountable. And when they see you setting high standards for yourself, it really becomes a lot easier. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm just looking back at the list of the 6 previous notes and how well these all coincide with each other. right? The way that you're able to keep showing up as the leader and doing the hard things is by protecting what information you're taking in your mind and protecting who you're spending your time with and all these other bullet points that we've already covered. So I love the way they're all synergizing together.
Well, I appreciate that because, here's the thing. No one gets here alone, and nobody succeeds alone, and nobody is going to thrive alone and get to the vision alone. It does take everyone working together to get there. So number 8, I think, is a really cool one because while you've talked about all these things to get us there, you have to be willing to run to the sound of the guns.
Mm-hmm.
I use military terms. A lot of the people in my world were in the military, and to me, in this market, people see a problem. And so a lot of people run away from the problem because it's a problem, and they sit on the sidelines and complain about the problem.
Right.
When you talk about running to the guns, what I'm talking about is running smack to the problem. And it's the same way in war. You run and get inside that problem. Are you going to find answers and solutions to the problem at hand?
Absolutely.
And opportunities.
Yeah, you can't figure out solutions by being an observer, a passive observer.
You can't. So people often don't want to do something because it's a problem. But it may only be you, the leader, that can actually help them solve the problem. So what I think of when I think of this is sometimes there are problems that just can't be fixed right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just have to manage them until they are fixable later. So here's what I mean by that. We talked about narrowing our focus, right?
Right.
Are there other things out there that probably are a good idea to be doing?
Yeah, they exist.
But we're just not going to focus on them right now. We're going to manage them right now,
right?
And focus on this. We're going to run to the sound of the guns, which right now is connection with our people, connection with our database, being the expert that you can explain to people why they should or shouldn't be buying homes. We're going to focus on that. We'll leave the rest for later.
Yeah. And another good example of that you just made me think of is, interest rates and what's happening with the Fed and the economy. And a lot of people are hearing what's on the news and running from the sound and protecting. And I interpret this as this is our opportunity to be at the forefront of what's happening, interpreting what's happening as it pertains to real estate, and educating our agents and our consumers on what is actually going on so they can make more informed decisions, right? As consultants, we're advisors and we guide people based on their ideal outcome. And something that we talk about, Kristan, is there's a lot of reasons, and Gary went over this on stage at Family Reunion with the vision speech. There's a lot of reasons why people choose to buy and sell real estate. The real estate market is not one of them. They do it based on what's happening in their life right. circumstances. Right. It's our job to help them, based on that life circumstance, make the best decisions in the market that we're in.
Correct.
So, which means we have to be aware of what's going on.
Right. So I'll give you an example. You know me, I'm absorbing data every day, all day. I'm kind of weird like that. So this morning I sent this text to all of you. I said, good morning. If you haven't been watching, the second and third largest bank failures in the U.S. history just happened. And the 2-year bond completely collapsed. And oh, by the way, the CPA came down 1%, 0.01% lower than the month before, but it was 4% lower than expected. That's good news. What does this all mean, right? So as an agent, just me as a leader, I have to be able to interpret it for my people. We have to be able to do that for our buyers and sellers. And so I said, what it means, because I don't expect you to know what an inverted bond yield looks like.
I read the words and I knew what the words meant, but I didn't know how they all fit together.
Right. So I went on to say what this means is in the short run, interest rates fell back this week from below 7 to about 6.5. The Fed may decide to show up and not raise rates next month. We'll have to wait and see. But the bottom line is the 2-year bond is screaming at the Fed to stop raising rates. We shall see.
Well, this is just an example of how, as a leader, you're taking the initiative to understand what's going on so that we're not just reacting to what we think, but that we're proactively anticipating.
That's right. That's right. So that today, if I'm an agent who has 10 buyers under on buyer brokerage agreements, I can call every one of them and say, let's get you with a purchase application right now to lock in this lower rate that all of a sudden was a gift to us that we didn't expect.
Right.
No one expected what happened this week.
Right.
But we have to be prepared when it does happen to take action and help our people.
That's right.
So run to the sound of the guns. You're going to find answers. You're going to find solutions, which inevitably will be opportunities for you that nobody else is paying attention to.
I love it.
Don't we love this stuff?
It's so good.
Okay, number 9. When you find your way, when you find your why, you will find your way. It's very difficult to find your way until you know your why and your willingness to do it. And so finding your why, you'll find your will, you'll find your habits, your focus will show up, you'll be unshakable. And so do you understand why you're doing what you're doing every day? When people understand their why, Joe, they don't need an alarm clock to wake them up to get going in the morning.
Right.
It's really super weird. I get up early, but this week I've woken up early on my own. I set an alarm just to make sure, but because there's so much going on and there's so much opportunity during chaos.
Yeah.
During chaos is when Gary says the most opportunity exists.
That's right.
But we just have to be able to, we have to know where we're going and we have to be purposeful about it, not get distracted by stuff that doesn't matter, that we cannot control. So if you haven't found your why, part of what we do when we get to the part about our culture, our mission, visions, values, beliefs, and perspectives, you in the scale class, you really lead them through this concept of knowing who you are, why you're doing what you're doing before you ever figure out the how and the what.
That's right. We use a lot of Simon Sinek in that section.
We sure do.
Inspired.
We sure do.
And I love what you said about, waking up in the morning, right? And the sort of energy that you have in the morning and how that's definitely a direct reflection of what you're focused on, right? If you're feeling like you're waking up and you're having to drag yourself out of bed and drag yourself to the office and do all these things you don't want to do, that's a signal that it's time to refocus, right? Or analyze what we're focused on and make a change. Right? Create a more compelling future and focus on that instead of the problems of yesterday.
Exactly. And so, when I think about it, I think about, it's not about what I do every day, but it is about who I am and who I'm becoming. So if you're dreading the day, you might want to just do a kind of a reevaluation of, well, what do I want?
Right.
Why do I want it? And
Right.
what am I willing to do to get it?
Powerful questions.
Yeah.
If you stop and actually chew on those for, however long, 10, 15 minutes, you'll find some answers.
You'll find some answers. I asked someone that question one time, those 3 questions. They said, I'm going to have to get back to you.
Yeah, right.
I got to give that some thought.
Yeah, right. Let me sleep on it.
Absolutely. So, and then finally, number 10, become a transformational leader. How do you know you're a transformational leader? Well, the way you know is you've actually have transformed some lives. So the question is, have you transformed lives? Well, as a leader, you can't just talk about it. You have to stand on a cause, right? If you're going to be a transformational leader that helps people go from survival to success to significance, you've got to stand on a cause, and you've got to be immovable on what that cause and what that vision is. And that's what Gary would say is an inside out game, which is quantum leap. And by the way, we're going to teach that in Alaska this summer. But it really is becoming that transformational leader, so much so that whatever your cause is, you cannot be talked out of it.
I like it.
Do you think I could be talked out of our vision?
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
No.
So being willing to stand on a cause. So before our time runs out, I know we went a little longer, but what questions do we have today based on all of this good stuff?
Yeah, this will be a good time to use the chat box, and or if you want to raise your virtual hand, we'll be happy to call on you.
And I'd say one more thing about it while you're typing your questions in there. The question is, I ask myself every day, am I making a difference doing something that makes a difference with people that make a difference at a time that makes a difference?
It's another big one.
But it's true.
Yeah.
Am I making a difference every day with people, with a cause that makes a difference, with people that make a difference at a time that makes a difference? So it forces you to narrow that focus.
That's right.
Again, like I want to be making a difference with people that are making a difference at a time that makes a difference. And that's a compounding effect.
It is. It's that geometric, yes.
Which is the part
geometric growth.
So what questions do we have?
Don't be bashful. We've got a few minutes, so feel free to ask anything you want. The only question I've seen so far is about finding the recording of this call, and it's been posted. Thank you, Tegan, for that. And it's on the MAPS YouTube channel. So thank you for that.
I know you guys have to have questions. Unless you're like me, like when Gary says something to me and I have to think about it for like a year
right
before I figure out what he's saying. But I was super glad that we had a lot of different people that I have interacted with that helped me come up with these 10 things.
Okay, so here's a question from Matt. How does someone who knows their why formulate the discipline to do the things each day?
Well, that gets back to motivation. So when you know your why, I would ask myself the question, what happens if I don't do it?
That's right.
and am I willing to accept the consequences? If I know my why and I know my giftings and what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm not doing them, then there's going to be consequences to that. Can I accept the consequences? And if I can't, then that will motivate me just to do what I need to be doing.
Yeah. It reminds me of the idea that there's move away from energy and move toward energy. And move away from are all the things that you don't want again in your life. I don't want to be broke. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to have limited options. And so I move away from that. And that gets us pretty far. However, in some cases, as we move away from that, we start to lose our motivation because we no longer feel the pain of not being able to pay our bills, right? We're comfortable. We're in success. We're in that comfortable zone. And so what you do is you start creating a more compelling future that is able to then pull you forward even further. And that goes right back to, most of the bullet points we've talked about today.
What's interesting is John Maxwell says being in success is the most dangerous place to be.
Right. For that reason, you get comfortable. Yeah, exactly. Melissa says, do you have examples of what you focus on that you aren't willing to compromise on? Your why and things you do specifically in your community, network, et cetera, that you could share.
Well, it's funny because some of the things is I have to create the time to do it. So I am super purposeful about I'm not saying I never watch TV, but it's not during the week for sure.
Right.
So it's the things I'm willing to say no to so that I can say yes to the things that are super important. Because most of the time, if we have too much in our calendar, the whirlwind's hitting us all the time, you're never going to see an opportunity.
Right.
You're just not going to see it. So I can think of so many cases where, because I was willing to say no to a bunch of things, which allowed me to have some time in the afternoon in my calendar, that I could focus on some opportunities that were coming my way that I would have completely missed. Think about the guy that we're looking at hiring that sent an email to us, right?
Yeah.
If we hadn't had any time, we would just dismiss that email.
That would have been very easy to delete, ignore, and move on from.
So I think the number one thing is you have got to have some time in your calendar for thinking and for evaluation and thinking time and being. So there's a time in my calendar every week and it's in the afternoon, so that if an opportunity comes up, I don't even have to look at my calendar. I know I have that slot available to have a conversation with someone, to follow up with someone. And so I would say, understand what you're saying no to. Most people say yes to too many things. That's what I'm trying to help our team is just those other things are, yes, they're important, but they're not important right now.
Yes.
These are important.
Right.
So just being willing to say no to a whole lot more that just doesn't matter.
Another thing I know that you do, Kristan, sort of religiously is your morning routine. Would you be willing to share anything about that and how that really gets you ready for the day?
Say that first part.
I'm still on the same question.
Oh.
I'm just asking my own sort of follow-up is because I know something that you do that you aren't willing to compromise on is that morning routine. Right. You wake up early and you do several things before you jump into work. Correct. That really get you in the right state for success.
So I do not jump up and look at my phone. That's not the first thing I do.
Right.
Because if I do, I'm going to start working on somebody else's 20%.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
You are. So if I don't look at my phone, I start working on my 20%.
Yeah. With total peace of mind.
Total peace of mind. The only thing I will do is I'll look at my text to make sure that, because I've got 5 kids, things happen, right?
Sure. No emergencies.
Yeah, exactly. But other than that, I really spend the morning time when I'm most creative, I think at the highest level. I spend my morning time on that before I start responding to everybody else's 80%.
That makes sense.
I focus on my 20. So that morning routine includes me really lining out, being prepared and allow for thinking time. Like today, the 10 things I wanted to share with you guys, I didn't want them to be the standard everyday things. Like I went and asked some people that I am close to, and the first one that came up is somebody shared with me yesterday. Because these are industry titans, seriously.
Right.
And he said, the man that loves to walk always walks further than the man that loves the destination. That one was a mind bender for me, but it's so true.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a morning routine that you stick to. And here's the thing, in a very distracting world of a lot of uncertainty, that is the one thing that will help you feel more in control than anything else.
Such a good point. So good. Mm-hmm. Yes. Love it. All right. We've got another question. Derek asked about control. He says, if you know that you don't have control over it, yet people will not accept that you don't control it. How do you explain this to someone in a charitable way?
You mean in a nice way?
Yeah.
Sometimes that's difficult for me, as my team members know, because I tend to be very direct. So what I'm trying to help people see is that, I'll give you an example. There was a team member asking me this morning about what's going on in the banking industry, and her friends are asking her to ask me, like, what about my money? And she gave them the exact right advice. She said, yes, your money will be covered by the Fed. However, it might not be available to you immediately. So you might want to pull some cash out for what you need right now. So the point is, in this chaotic world, you can share with some people some things that will help them feel more calm. Can't control the Fed, the bank, whether a bank gets seized by the government or not. So, but you can control whether you have pull out a little bit of cash to make sure you've got money available. So give them solutions, John.
Yeah.
Just help them with little hacks. The
most obvious example that comes to mind is when you're in a listing presentation and you're talking about pricing, you say something effective. I don't create the market as a real estate agent. I interpret what's happening and give you guidance based on your outcome. Right. And so I'm not telling you what is going to happen. I'm telling you what's already happening and what we anticipate to happen so that we can make an educated decision together.
Great point.
The other thing I would just add really fast is the way you say things is 5 times more important than what you actually say. So the words aren't actually that important. It's the way that you say it that's far more important when people hear it. So you can be direct in your words, just say it in a way that's friendly. Say
it in a way. Well, you can do that and say in a way like Ed Mylett says, I don't expect you to believe what I believe. I just expect you to understand that I believe what I believe.
Right.
So
good point.
Confidence.
That's right.
So confidence in times of chaos can go a long way. That's why you've got to be around proven leaders to take you through it.
We've got a couple more questions.
Okay.
One book that has changed your life.
Great Leaders Ask Good Questions by John Maxwell and The One Thing.
Those are 2 great options.
If you ask great questions and you narrow your focus, you're going to win.
Could you elaborate on what becoming a transformational leader looks like?
So John Maxwell says when you're in success, it's the most dangerous place to be. And that's true because you're comfortable. If you're willing to go from success to significance, that's going from I've taken care of my needs and my family needs. Now I'm going to help others. When you get into the mindset of starting to help other people grow and get out of survival into success, and you're helping other people grow, then what's going to happen is people are going to come to you. Sometimes you know, and sometimes you don't know, but some people will come to you a year later, 3 years later and say, remember when you helped me with this? It changed my life forever. You become a transformational leader when you see that you've changed lives.
Yeah.
That's a transformational leader. So even after you're helping others, then my question is am I living out my legacy, which is to help, other leaders do something, achieve something no one else has ever done? To me, that's when you'll know you're transformational, when you've actually, there's demonstrative proof that other lives have been changed because you help them.
And think about the impact and the talent you can attract when you become that person, right? I still remember you telling me your big why, which coupled with your vision for the business future was the reason I moved across the country to join you.
Right.
And your big why is leading and influence leaders who lead and influence other leaders such that they accomplish what no one else ever has.
Right.
And when I heard that, I was like, your focus is making me the best version of me so I can make everybody else the best version of them.
Yes.
And I was like, so anyway.
And together, having done that, we will achieve things that no one else has ever been able to achieve.
Right.
In our space.
So definitely a great leadership lesson as it pertains to attracting and retaining talent. Okay, we've got a couple more.
Okay.
If you need to clarify your why, what is one question you could ask yourself?
Well, 3 questions. I'd ask myself, what makes me cry? What makes you laugh? And what makes you sing? If you ask yourselves those questions, you'll figure out real fast what's important to you.
That might be worth journaling out.
Yeah. So that will help you. What makes you cry? What makes you laugh? What makes you sing?
Yeah. There was another question about more books. You already gave us 2. Are there any other books that you think would massively impact in our timely based on our audience today?
And I'm just looking real quick because I'm usually listening to like 5 books at a time.
Yeah, fair.
And and there's so many, and I think it depends on where you are in your journey, whether a book is important to you at the moment or not important to you. But for me in particular, there's been lots of them that I like. And I'm usually reading so many of them at the same time, but I was just looking for the one, Atomic Habits.
So good. James Clear.
Yeah, that one's, I think, really super important. And I'm just looking through them real quick. The Happiness Advantage. That was a great one. Sean was at our family reunion, not this year, last year, and he talked about that. It was, and I thought that was really good. Multipliers by Liz Wyman. That's a good one. Know What You're For. Know What You're For by Jeff Henderson. It basically is, you understand who you are as a leader. Know what you're for rather than what you're not for. There's lots and lots and lots of good ones. Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a book about, this one's probably I love this book. The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham.
Yes.
Put that on your bumper sticker.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's lots of them. But those are just a few.
Some awesome suggestions.
Leader's Greatest Return by John Maxwell.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And that looks like I think we've wrapped up our questions and right on time here.
I love that. So we really appreciate you all coming today. And we look forward to, if you're joining us in the scale class, we'll look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks at the start of that class. And we appreciate your time today. Hope it's been worth your time and your efforts to be here. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.